Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A video. This is season 9, episode 11. We do say weekly. We did miss last week. This is a busy season for me in terms of school.
Yeah.
But hopefully not for too much longer. And this week I do have some time. So here we are. If you're on YouTube, that's great. Good for you. Pat on the back. And if you're listening to this on another platform, then also good for you, pat on the back. It's cool no matter where you're listening to it, whatever format.
Yeah.
We just appreciate sort of your attention.
Yeah.
Or not. We don't, you know what, we appreciate the numbers, but we can't really sort of see you or perceive you on an individual basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you as an individual person, we have no understanding of you watching or anything else. But if you comment or interact with us or engage with us somehow, then we appreciate that.
We appreciate it even more.
Yeah,
it's a whole another level of appreciation.
Yeah, and so speaking of comments, we have some comments that we're going to talk about.
I think I'm going to indulge myself a little bit to go on a bit of a rant, but we should maybe start with the original comment and the question.
Yeah, okay. So this is on one of our recap videos. Adam L. says, at 15 seconds, you say the required characters are Catwoman, Lex Luthor, and Doomsday, who are bronze, and silver, respectively, but you can use any rarity of the character to fulfill the requirement, so you should leave that out. I don't know if you do that in other videos. This is only the second one I've watched. And then there's a few comments.
I think it's worth going over some of it, because to me it's an interesting conversation, and it's not, it starts off, you know, it's okay. It's not awful. And then Locutus
442 says, yeah, we all know that. What they're referring to is the minimum rarity of those characters, aka how easy they are for a newbie to get them so they can do this challenge.
And I actually liked that comment. I put one of those, you know, that I clicked on the like thing.
The heart button, yeah,
because
it's true.
It's actually an accurate assessment of what our intention was.
That's the information we're trying to convey.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so then Adam L. says, quite presumptuous for you to assume the knowledge base of every Injustice player in existence, but okay. And then replies, and you even admit your interpretation is they are aiming at noobs with the statement, which are people unfamiliar with cycles, so especially need clarity instead of being told specific rarity characters are required. And then do you want to...
So then I came in, so... I said, for want of two words, yes, we usually talk about the requirements as characters who are available as, and we've done this for hundreds of weeks and spend more time commenting when the minimum requirement is out of reach of many new players. For example, when challenge golds are required for one or more of the ladders.
Yeah, and then Adam says, listen, I'm just giving you advice because new viewers decide whether to keep going or not within the first 30 seconds. Your misleading requirements are made 18 seconds in a 15-minute video, so your, quote, more time commenting occurs outside this critical window of opportunity to lower bounce rate at your own detriment. Since you seem to be ignoring my constructive advice by liking Locutus 442's comment, implying it is unnecessary, despite having read my rationale that such noobs especially require clarity, this one shows you're podcasting for a self-centered reason of claiming to have a platform of followers, rather than taking in feedback that would benefit new players, and 2, explains why your views to subs ratio is microscopically low, since rather than taking in feedback that would lower bounce rate, you resist perceived criticism that would otherwise would accelerate growth. For these reasons, I have no chance but to abandon any future attempts at trying to revive a dead channel with insight from a growth marketing professional.
So it just totally really goes off the rails there, right?
I mean, listen, I can maybe even a little bit understand that initial sort of raising of the hackles when somebody comes in and says something like, you know, we all know that. And maybe you feel a little bit like somebody's coming after you because you go, well, I didn't know that. And I'm commenting because I didn't.
But he did. This is the thing, right? Like, it's... Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Then maybe they feel like somebody's, you know, sort of challenging them. Yeah. But this went pretty sideways pretty quickly. I think... what I will say about these comments is that most of the comments that they make about our channel being dying and having a high bounce rate and a low view to subs ratio, I mean, that is all very true. But I will say that that's not a particularly shocking or striking revelation to us. Revelation?
Yeah, revelation. It's a reveal, not relevant as opposed to reveal.
Yeah, no. Right. I've made that mistake recently, actually.
Oh, like a presentation kind of mistake?
No, not in a presentation. Just, I don't know which one of those to say, and I say the wrong one with some frequency. Maybe that's why people stop watching, is our poor grasp of the English language.
I think that's it. I mean, it is so. And the funny thing is, when you get really sort of weird comments like this that are just sort of like nudging at the truth a little bit, and then they get so many fundamental things wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so I already mentioned, right? The thing that we liked about that comment was that it was accurate.
It was sort of what we might have said. Not in the same words, but it was the information that we were trying to say anyways.
Right. And so some of the things, I mean, in that last one, right? So we're podcasting for self-centered reason of claiming to have a platform of followers. No, we're podcasting because a small group of people seem to enjoy it, and an even smaller group of people pay us money as patrons to keep on doing it. Yeah, and,
I would say we are making content for a self-centered reason, which is because we like it. Yeah. I mean, you're right. This isn't for the fans out there. I mean, we appreciate our fans. We like that there are people watching us. But the reason why we do it is because the people watching us and sort of the ecosystem and the people that we appreciate make us enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
If I said, oh, wow, if somebody came to me and they said, I really love your channel, it's really, really important to me, and I was like, yeah, I don't enjoy doing this anymore, I'd be like, I'm sorry. I hate to disappoint you, but yeah, no, I don't want to, so I'm not going to, right? It's because we enjoy it. It is absolutely and 100% self-centered.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause even at the peak, the number of viewers was not enough to sustain. I mean, I can talk about that in more detail, right? But some of these things, right? Like why your views to subs ratio is microscopically low. No, you know what? The reason our views to subs ratio is really bad because we accumulated a lot of subscribers who still refuse to unsubscribe even though this game is dead.
And they don't watch us anymore.
Right. Yeah, you can't accelerate growth in a dead game.
Well, and there was two sort of times, I guess not just two, but it's easy to think about. So one time where we accumulated most of our subscribers and our clout and everything was where there was a bunch of glitches going on.
Yeah.
And so people, I'd like to think that we added a little bit of something. I'd like to think that we were better than the average glitch video, but people didn't really come for us. They came for the glitches. Yeah. And they would have probably watched a video made by different people, even if it was different, even if the stuff that we like to think that we were doing to add value wasn't present. I'm sure a lot of people would have watched a video on the glitch no matter who made that video or what.
Yeah.
And we could see in that time there was other people who made glitch videos who got a ton of views. Right? And we were maybe better off a little bit in terms of views and support than people who just made like one and then were done. Or who weren't as consistent with the other stuff. People kind of knew our channel for glitches, so that made it a little bit better. But it was a little bit us, and it was mostly the fact that we had access to this information that people wanted, and we packaged it in a way that people could get at it relatively easily.
And I think we occupied an interesting space, because there was definitely a group that was all glitch and cheats and hacks, and there's another group that did gameplay videos.
Yeah.
And we were one of the few that actually straddled both, and we were still relatively early too.
Yeah, and I don't even think we were ever the biggest Injustice Mobile channel.
Oh no, not even close.
So like the thing about it's funny because we built up those subscribers, and now we've got a certain number of people who are pretty cool. Obviously, there are some new people trickling in, like this person. I'm sure they're not going to stick around for very long because they're done trying to revive our channel. But no, we're not at a point where we're accelerating growth. We're at a point where we're sort of shored up, and we get like new patrons every once in a while, which is still shocking to me, and I'm super grateful and surprised. That's a real sort of exciting moment in our lives. And it's not even, again, for all this stuff, like it's just that it's cool more than I think anything else. And then it makes this a little bit more enjoyable to know that there's people who like our stuff that much.
To do something active to show that they enjoy it. Yeah. There's a related point too. The number of viewers each week is microscopically low because the number of new players each week is also microscopically low. And the subset of new players that would bounce after 15 seconds is even smaller than that. I mean, really, the great majority of our subscribers subscribe to us because of glitches that no longer exist. So if you're talking about ongoing growth, the game is losing its audience. Mm-hmm. And the number of new people coming on isn't enough to sustain it. So, I mean, we've been bleeding viewers for ages. But the interesting thing to me is that the subscriber numbers have stayed relatively high, considering how easy it is for people to unsubscribe.
Yeah, and I like understand from my own perspective that there's a bunch of people who I subscribe to who I don't watch videos from anymore, but I don't unsubscribe for them.
Right.
It normally takes something for me to unsubscribe from somebody, so we sort of leave that. And I know that like our subscriber to viewer ratio is pretty abysmal,
Right.
but you know,
Yeah.
it's not like I want to lower our subscriber count artificially.
Right.
And I don't
Right.
really care. What matters is whether the number of viewers is enough for us to keep doing it, not whether our ratio is good enough.
And I think not even the number of viewers. I feel like there's a few weeks there. I mean, the numbers, some people still feel like these are decent numbers. I think it's a lot like Red Lantern Hal Jordan, right? How good he used to be compared to how he is now.
Yeah.
And I feel like he kind of really sucks now.
Yeah.
And I feel like the numbers really are bad relative to what we used to have.
It's true.
And so, where was I going with this?
Is it the engagement then? Is that
No,
what
it's the
you're talking
patrons.
It's the patrons?
It really is the patrons, because it's in a lot of ways I feel like I owe them a little bit more because they've made more of a contract with us than people who just happen to come by and watch. And that's why I think when somebody comments, I feel more of a connection and I guess the kind of positive reinforcement that makes you think, oh yeah, this kind of stuff is still worth doing.
Buy your way to a parasocial relationship. That's the real Patreon promise, isn't it?
And it's true. You laugh, but I feel like somehow there's that kernel of truth in there.
Yeah.
So the interest. All right. So getting back to this specific comment, though, the interesting thing is to be that offended by this comment. So what we're essentially, when we say challenge requirements are Catwoman, Lex Luthor, and Doomsday, who are bronze, and silver respectively, that's literally what we said.
Yeah.
You have to think that that's wrong because Catwoman has bronze, silver, gold, and metal skins. Lex Luthor has bronze, silver, and gold skins. And Doomsday has silver and gold skins, all of which satisfy the requirements. That's on the one hand, but you have to know that and then still be inexperienced enough to not realize that we are talking about the cheapest and easiest availability, because when people hear that in general and they're not thinking, oh, let's pick them apart, they'll, a lot of times, you know, it's like when you read a book and you're missing details. Joe Walton had a really good thing about this, right? Mm-hmm. Is that there's the white space, and that when you enjoy something, you make an effort yourself to come up with the explanation that explains potential inconsistencies, as opposed to something you really don't like, and you can just tear it apart.
Yeah.
So they have to be experienced enough to know that there's all these other skins, and so we are wrong saying that this is the only skin that exists. Because literally, if you're going to interpret it that way, that's what it could sound like, because that's the worst interpretation.
Yeah.
Because the real newbie who doesn't know how to play isn't going to have the higher level skins, and may not even have the one skin. I mean, that is the issue, right? Like when people actually have an issue with the challenge and are looking for information that's helpful, you got to catch them in that sort of, and this is going to be issue with the information. They've got to be right in that sweet spot where they're really inexperienced enough that this information matters, but experienced enough to know that there's a problem with this.
Yeah.
And I don't think that person exists.
And I think, because if you look at what we literally said, you might be led to believe that only that sort of version of those characters are playable. But there's a really, really narrow band where somebody hasn't tried a higher tier or anything else like that.
See, so if you're playing, you already have a silver or gold or even metal Catwoman. You're not watching that video and thinking, ugh, now I need to buy bronze Catwoman for the challenge, right?
Yeah.
You're ignoring that part of the video because you already know what that means, because you've played enough in order to have the higher level skins. You're not thinking, oh, these guys are idiots because Batman Ninja Catwoman works. No point watching this video. I mean, maybe you are. I think there's such a small group of people like that I don't even mind if that's enough to make them balance. Because when you do this over and over, like for hundreds of videos, I think if we're really worried about how carefully we're doing these videos, we would have to fire both of us, because we're the ones responsible for this.
Yeah, we do a real sloppy job with some of these sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. Like, I mean, back when we were getting thousands of views in a day on our glitch videos, I can't tell you how many times people wouldn't follow the very detailed, like this. When you say you're not sure what we added or whether we added something.
No, I'm sure we added something. I'm just not sure how much it mattered to whether or not we got views.
Yeah, so I think to me, it mattered a lot, because with the way people did videos, they would just do it. They weren't careful about what they said. They weren't careful about what they showed. and it was very easy to make mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and potentially screw stuff up. So part of it was the stuff we did before the videos and testing it.
Yeah.
And part of it was demonstrating it. And part of it was having tested it enough. Sort of like this, having played enough to know what the differences are and where you could potentially go wrong.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I know we provided value in that sense. I know we put work in. I'm just saying I think somebody else who was doing a similar thing but worse might have still gotten, the same views.
So, but
actually, they might have gotten more views. If it doesn't work, somebody might go back and watch it a couple times and keep trying it.
Right.
If it works well enough, if their instructions are just vague enough that it's working for people in the comments, and then some people are like, oh, it's not working for me, they might go back and check it a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah, so people would watch it, make a mistake, because they wouldn't follow these detailed instructions. They couldn't figure out what was going wrong because they didn't have the patience to watch the entire video. And so, I mean, I don't know about you, but that's sort of deadened me on the inside to impatience. Like when people are impatient about stuff, I have a lot less tolerant. I'm less patient for impatience. I have less tolerance for that. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make up the most twisted misinterpretation of what we're saying, why just say that a noob's gonna bounce because they think we're idiots for saying all Catwoman skins are bronze?
Yeah.
Right? But if we were really worried about doing something wrong, the 1 week that we do it wrong, I mean, pretty much, I want to say that pretty much every other week for hundreds, but maybe there just hasn't been enough people nitpicking. Maybe we need more nitpickers.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't even mind. So the problem is that the initial comment where it's like, oh, well, like, you got this wrong, right? I don't even mind somebody pointing it out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what it is it's where it ends up, obviously, but it's that little bit of like, oh, you should take this out of the video.
Yeah.
It's like there's one family friend who's quite a lovely person, but one time we're in a restaurant together and they ordered something.
Yeah.
And then after the meal, they talked to the wait staff.
Yeah.
And they're like, I didn't like this. I think you should take it off the menu. I don't know if you remember that. You were there for it.
Yeah. It sounds sort of familiar.
I don't want to be mean to this person. They're generally very lovely and quite wonderful. But they just said that. And, I was a lot younger. I didn't say anything in the moment. I think we talked about it afterwards to just be like, that's not good behavior, right? But it's something about that sort of like, I think you should take this out of the video, really reminded me of that same family friend of, I didn't like this dish. I think you should remove it from the menu.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very good at all. And so, like, I don't even have any issue with going, oh, you said this, but that's actually not true. Because you're right. Oh, you got us.
Oh, no, yeah, because usually when that happens, what I'm happy to do, if it's a significant thing, I will pin it as the top comment.
Yeah.
Because it is important, and usually in description I'll do something about it, right?
Yeah, and so I don't think that most people would have that interpretation. Clearly, when you heard it, you did have that interpretation.
I don't think so.
Well, no,
I think they were looking for a problem.
I don't even know.
For an issue.
I think I'm giving them the charitable view, and I think that they had that interpretation and then said, hey, that's not right.
But see, this is the mistake that people make sometimes. I think when you give people the benefit of the doubt, it's the argument people make when they're online. They say, sort of innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Right? And that's for criminal stuff. But in a civil court, like when you're there, for most of the time, you don't have to wait until there's proof that somebody's guilty. You can you can have an opinion about it and think, they're being a bit of a dick.
Yeah, but I don't even care. You know what I mean? This is not one of those things that you're right. I don't know that their intentions, but I think in general that if you come at people with assuming they have the best intentions and not like in a position to let yourself get walked all over. But I'm just assuming this person has the best intentions because it doesn't matter. And it gets bad enough that it doesn't matter how good their intentions were at the start. They say a bunch of stuff that I'm not
this is what I'm saying. So I'm judging it based on what they said afterwards.
Yeah.
So clearly, to me, the charitable sort of interpretation, it goes out the window when you get to... All right, so here, the best part is, this is, when you get really pompous at the end and call yourself a growth marketing professional, that is such a load of shit. I mean, okay, so to me, if we were talking about vibes and what it reminds you of, that's totally that Pretty Woman thing. And not every situation is a movie, right? Mm-hmm. Where, Julia Roberts gets to come back into the store and say, oh, that was a big mistake. you know, this is look at all the stuff I bought after I left your store. That somehow to me that has that feeling where they're wanting to have their pretty woman moment to come back and say, well, I'm a growth marketing professional. I had really great advice for you, and I could have made your channel stupendous, but you just missed your chance.
It's a really weird revenge thing too, because the underlying thing is that you know, if we were being crappy to you, the issue would not be that you actually have something good to say. The issue would be that we were being awful, right?
Yeah,
the issue would be that we were mistreating you. So for you to come back and go, I actually have, you know, a certification in, you know, being right on the internet. The comeuppance to us isn't, oh no, we had this opportunity. We weren't contracting you. You weren't, even if, you know, you did this, we would either take that piece of advice or not. I'm assuming you weren't going to build us like a whole portfolio of, tips and tricks to grow our channel. So this was kind of the interaction that we're gonna have.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit like when you go into a store and when somebody's like complaining to like the cashier and they go, I'm never shopping here again.
Well, you knew they weren't coming back.
Yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, I don't care. I'm not really invested in this. I don't care what your job is.
You know what? It's funny. Like when you say it like that, I think I hadn't sort of formulated my mind like that, but there's sometimes where I think, oh, I would like to block this person from watching our channel. And I feel like that too when somebody complains, I'm never shopping here again. And you know,
well, I really hope you don't.
It saves us the problem of having to ban you.
And this is a really broad document, but that like growth marketing professional, there's something about the way that
it's
they
so
phrased
pretentious.
Well, you know what it reminded me a little bit, and there's no like I think comparison to be drawn here, but there's just something about the phrasing that reminded me. Do you know what happened to Papa John?
Oh, where he did that, he was all sweaty and stuff.
No,
and he was saying I eat 30 pizzas a day or 30 pizzas a month.
30 pizzas a month. No, there was that one. Yeah, where he looked like he was currently, I don't know, dying. But no, what happened? Because the reason he got kicked out, right, was for racial epithets.
I did not know that.
So he said, I think the N-word in a board meeting.
Oh.
And the reason why I think about growth marketing professional is because the actual context, you think it's bad, and he was like, it was a conspiracy, they were trying to, take me down. But it gets a lot worse, because the meeting that he was in where he said the N-word was a meeting with a PR company that was trying to reform his image because there's this perception of him being racist.
and he can't write it. He can't write that better.
Yeah, and then he said the N-word in this meeting with the team, and then I think it was maybe somebody from the PR team who actually like reported it.
Right.
And so his argument was that, at least in part, that these people were trying to take him down and that they baited him into saying the N-word. That they somehow tricked him.
It's entrapment.
And he's like, these people were trying to take him down. So the team that was hired to make him seem less racist tricked him into saying the N-word so that they could take him down from the inside. Which is,
oh my gosh.
And again, there's nothing to pull into this, but there's something about the growth marketing professional and seeing it over and over again where it's like these PR professionals are trying to taint my image.
Okay.
So that was entirely unrelated, but you think Papa John is really bad, and he's actually worse. He said he's coming in with these people, and he was like, "Okay, guys, make me seem less racist," and then he did one of the more racist things that he could have done in that context. I'm not going to say the most racist, because I think you can always get worse.
Oh yeah, there's always.
But it's pretty up there in terms of clearly unacceptable. It's not something that anybody would go, well, maybe that's not right. Maybe that's all right.
Maybe there's a context I'm missing.
And the fact that he thought that it's an acceptable defense to say that somebody tricked him into doing it. I don't think there's a lot of...
I don't know how it got there. I just slipped in.
Yeah.
So
we were playing a team building game where they would put up words on a screen. You had to shout them out as fast as possible. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't... I'm not saying that it would be impossible to trick me into saying a slur.
I think it would be.
Oh, I'm not... I don't know. I don't know myself. I've never been in a position where somebody's been trying to trick me into saying a slur. I think it would be pretty hard.
I think I'd have to be intoxicated on something.
I don't know.
I mean, if there was... How transparent could it not be? Like, it'd have to be really opaque, and you wouldn't realize they're trying to do this, and then you wouldn't think, you're trying to get me out, and then try to thwart them.
If somebody was literally trying to trick you, though, I'm sure they would have employ some tactics to like loosen you up. I can say with certainty, I know I legally I don't know what this claim is in terms of slander or whatever, but I can say with almost 100% certainty that nobody was trying to trick Papa John into saying the N-word. I'm fairly confident that that is not what that situation was.
I have not heard that at all.
It's pretty funny. It's good stuff.
Right. All right, so let me pull this back to the question. I mean, so this guy is clearly, just to us as an internet random guy, rando's the word, right? Has no clue what the context of the game, of our situation, in the context of the game and what it's meant to us. And I think there's a technical term for this called swill merchant, where they are trying to sell crap that isn't real. Like, so here's the thing: the only possible growth that would be possible would require us to abandon injustice, or at the very least focus on things that have nothing to do with injustice, because the audience for injustice is shrinking right now. Anybody who is listening to this, who has a channel our size or smaller, if someone thinks they can help you grow your channel, run. This size, it's more important to do what you want to do instead of doing what other people think you should do. Yeah. There's literally orders of magnitude. If you don't know what order of magnitude is, it's like
10 times.
10 times. One order of magnitude is 10 times. So there's orders of magnitude difference between what we're doing and what we would need to do to make a living with YouTube. Even when we were doing our best and we had ad revenue based on like hundreds of thousands of views in 1 month.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been enough to sustain one person at the poverty level.
And I mean, there are ways to do channel growth when you have a small channel. There's one YouTube channel that I really, really like from a game designer who's done Video Move or Die called Mental Checkpoint. And he has said that he loses money every video, and I totally believe it, because he doesn't have the hugest number of subscribers. And his videos are really slick. They're incredibly edited. They're really well written.
Right.
They're like kind of, to me, like the platonic ideal of like bite-sized like game development tip stuff.
Right.
He's got developer interviews. It's really sort of top shelf, super professional stuff. And he's got like, I don't remember how many subscribers, but it's less than 1 million. It's less than 500,000. It's like in the order of like 100,000 or a couple 100,000.
Right.
And so, you know, that guy is clearly pumping some money into the channel to have it grow.
Right.
And it's growing pretty fast because it's also a very new channel. Right? And so you can see like that is the kind of guy who maybe, you know, I think he's got a handle on it himself.
But he's got the product. Like, so I think where the growth happens, where a PR professional.
Yeah, growth marketing's happening there though somewhere.
But where the value of somebody coming to help isn't with the content, because the content itself, you've got to have something there that's basic and fundamental that has demand, is creating, because I've always said, when you've got content creators, there are so many good ones. The problem isn't that the content isn't good enough, because there's so many people with great content. It's that you're not reaching your audience.
There's no version of this channel with us two making it that's like
has
a million subscribers. There's just no version of us that's viral and making our living off of YouTube. It's just not who we are, what this is.
Right, because the niche of Injustice mobile players is just so small that anybody coming and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a professional, I can help you grow your channel." Totally try and take advantage of somebody who's really poorly informed, or maybe they're poorly informed themselves. But this is like, there's nowhere where you can start with something this small and make it into something big without completely changing it and making it a whole different thing.
Our issue is not a lack of professional consultants.
And the other thing too is the way I know that they're not really a growth marketing professional or any good, either they're not one or they're really bad at it, is that they're too married to the idea of being right and acting and really wanting someone to acknowledge it. Like they're getting, like, where it degenerates is when they kind of push the need for somebody to say, "Yeah, you're right, you're the best, oh my god, we are so wrong, we are not worthy of you."
I think what is interesting about it is because they act like bounce rate and stuff, they are using some actual real terminology. And some of what they're saying might theoretically be useful somewhere else. What I think is funny is the way that they've reframed their initial comment as an attempt to accelerate our growth in sort of some sort of professional context.
Right.
Right? That this is the advice of a professional and that they're somehow saying this to help us and that is just for our benefit and that's it. But then it turns out that we're too self-involved and we're in it for the wrong reasons that I can't help you. Your channel's dying and I wash my hands of the situation. But because all they've said is that you should leave that out. You know, they start out, they're like, I don't think this information is right. You should leave it out. And then somebody else says, well,
what they meant
was this, and then we like it, and they go, well, you're ignoring me, and I'm a growth marketer, and screw you.
Yeah.
And
so, it's funny because you were right about some of the language. Yeah. But the thing with the internet is that language, that kind of superficial appearance of expertise, is really easy to achieve when you can use a few words. And what the mistake though is, like when you actually have real expertise, it comes across.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not so much because you don't actually need the words. You have an understanding of the idea and the concept. So here's the thing. To me, a real professional knows that they will still get paid by their client, even if the client won't listen to them. Mm-hmm. Right? To me, that's what, like somebody who's actually got experience knows that. A real professional with real experience knows that there's always going to be clients that won't listen to them. And it just goes with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you'll still get paid. That's not what matters, isn't that you don't have to have people tell you that you're right. Some of them will, and some of them won't.
And, you know, talking about it in terms of, like, that balance and whatever, right? Like, people are gonna watch 18 seconds, realize it's wrong, and then click away. That's not, like, growth marketing. Like, that's not what the advice that you were giving us. It'd be like if I came into a conversation and it's like, you know, I'm a Subway sandwich artist and here's what I think about the situation in Ukraine. And I when I say that, I was trying to think of a job that would have absolutely no sort of expertise in relation to that. Because initially I was going to say I'm a lawyer and I'm in whatever, but I'm like, you know what, lawyers might actually have at least a little bit of something to say in a lot of different situations where it might be useful. So I'm not trying to knock Subway sandwich artists at all with that. It's not saying like, oh, here's like a fake job.
Right.
But
okay, but
you know.
So I think, do you remember a time when Subway, they used to cut the bread in like a little V so that the meat and stuff would sit in it so it would be less likely to spill out the sides?
I don't, because I was never a real big sort of Subway guy.
Oh, I used to like Subway not because they were particularly healthy, but they were healthy in one specific way where they were lower fat, they were filling, you could basically have enough toppings so it was like having a salad on your sandwich. But they used to, so Subway sandwich artist. I was going to say Subway artist sandwich. Subway sandwich artists. Mm-hmm. It did feel like they were doing something very artisanal.
Yeah.
And they used to cut the bread. But it's so serious. So they would cut the bread different than, say, you know, in Canada we've got Mr. Sub, or we've got other places that do Subway sub sandwiches where the bread would be a flat cut. And I mean, that's where all you see now. But when they did it as a V, they could really load stuff up.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to be worried about spilling it, and it would be, you know, almost easier to eat. And those were the real artists. I miss that.
Yeah, and I think sandwich artist as a job designation probably gets a little more crap than it deserves, because the term sandwich artist feels so unnecessarily aggrandizing that I think it makes people want to go, well, yeah, but you just make sandwiches, though. Because I think if you say that you're a cashier at McDonald's, people go, oh, all right. But if you go, I'm a sandwich artist, and they go, are you an artist, though, really? I think
because it's pretentious.
Yeah.
It's the same way as calling yourself growth marketing professional.
Yeah, but it's not the fault of the people who are working there.
Right, if you're not calling yourself that.
It's like, what was the joke? I think Charlie from It's Always Sunny, the way he called himself like a janitorial engineering technician or whatever, like when you just keep adding words to it. Oh. Until it becomes...
Yeah, it was, there used to be a term for that. There was a joke when there was pushback against changing the terms, when people were taking racist and sexist terms and trying to find other ways to say it so that it wouldn't be so loaded. Then one of the things, it was janitors. They used to call them something,
Sanitation engineers.
Sanitation engineers, right.
But I don't even have any issue with that. I think a janitor is a good, solid job, and I think they should be paid more. They should be paid more.
Jobs where people don't want to do.
The other thing is that janitors in some circumstances actually get paid quite well. If you're a union, and I agree they should be.
Our cat literally this morning. Yeah. So what happens? All right. So maybe not everybody remembers that we had a cat. We have a cat. We've had a cat for a relatively short time.
You know.
Well, people might
not know we have a cat,
but we've mentioned it before, and we've even posted cat videos.
Yeah.
But that every once in a while what happens is because he swallows hairs that are really long.
Oh my god. Okay, this is a little gross for anybody who wants to skip forward 2 minutes if you're not okay hearing about cats and
sometimes poop. When he does a number 2 in his litter box, it doesn't clear completely because it's dangling by that long hair that he swallowed.
Yeah.
And then being the smart, fastidious cat that he is, he tries to get rid of it the only way he knows how when he only has paws. He tries to rub it off.
By butt scooching. And what he normally does is get it stuck somewhere in his hair. And then
packs it into his hair.
Yeah, and then smears it all over the house because he's a real...
And that is the absolute worst job associated with having a cat.
Yeah.
And I think I would totally be happy. Every time that happened, I would be happy to pay somebody to not only take care of CB and clean the stuff out of the hair near his tail, but also clean the places where he scooched. And I totally... Like, that kind of job, like I was saying, if it's a bad job, it should be more valuable, not less.
And, you know, I think people know broadly that we're pretty progressive, politically left. But I think, you know, most jobs, every job should be paid well.
Every job,
I think there might be some jobs where I understand getting paid a little more or a little less, like theoretically in a vacuum. For example, really high stress jobs where you have to take time off, right?
Right.
If we're assuming that the way that you're sustaining yourself is based off of working, right? Which currently it is. I would rather something like universal basic income or just providing people with the means to live and, you know, be pretty successful anyways. Because at this point, so much stuff is automated, so much stuff is so efficient that we don't really need everybody working. We just don't know what to do with people when they're not working.
That was the lie. That was the huge lie, right? So all the technology that's advanced, where it's supposed to be making jobs easier and making our lives better, it was supposed to give us more leisure time. And instead of more leisure time, we've created more work.
We just make up fake jobs for people to do.
I wish we'd make up more fake jobs that were easily manageable and weren't so stressful.
Yeah. But so, like, you know... In the case that people are still working for their money, I understand somebody like an air traffic controller or whatever getting paid, you know, double or triple so that they can take like 2/3 of the time off, right? Right. If that's a job and there's, you know, some balance or whatever. Right? We're not trying to remake the economy here, but our point is that we're not putting any jobs that we say here, and we're also not saying, I don't think any job is inherently much more valuable or much less valuable than another job, with a few exceptions, and most of those exceptions are people who actually make pretty good money. I think landlord is a job that is inherently creating less value than a lot of other work.
Right.
I think that like middle management is inherently a job that creates a lot less value than other work.
And sorry, landlord as opposed to the actual person who's on site.
Yeah, as opposed to like housing manager. If
right,
you've got,
so that's different. So housing manager has, the landlord is the owner who's basically extracting more value by having stuff that other people don't.
So the only jobs that actually don't have a lot of respect for tend to be the ones that are paid pretty well. You know.
Right.
Inherently. But yeah, so...
Like CEOs.
Well, you know what? Even CEOs, I think... that a lot of there's a lot of management work and stuff. I think that, what to me feels unfair is the disparity. Because there are a lot of CEOs who do put actually in a very huge amount of work, and they're important for organizational culture, and they do a lot of CEOs do a lot.
Let me put it to you this way. It's not so much, to me, it's the baseline CEO. So when you've got the baseline of a CEO for whatever threshold you want to make for how big the company is, that the lowest salary that they get, to me, is way too high. There should be a much bigger range so that the pay you get actually reflects the work that you're doing, and not the fact that you happen to be this potentially just a figurehead where most of the people around you are doing the work, and you make a few decisions which a lot of times turn out just as badly as it could be as if nobody was making the decision. I think that's the issue I have with, you know, like you said, the disparity between the frontline worker makes and this sort of the boss of all bosses.
Exactly. And I think we're almost even getting into that the same issue from another side, where we're saying, you know, we devalue a lot of these people's work, and the solution is to devalue other people's work a bit. But we're talking about equity here. We're not talking about anybody. Like, again, I think at the end of the day, what it is, I took an anthropology class recently just for an elective, just because I had to pick up something. And I figured it wouldn't be that hard. And we were just learning about how there were gatherer tribes there are gatherer tribes. I mean, the textbook's a little outdated. Obviously, things can change. I don't know if that's the current state of the world at this particular moment.
Right.
But who don't work very much, and they don't use preservatives, and they have really short work weeks, and it's like something like 5 hours is a work day, and on average they work for like 20 hours a week or something like that.
Yeah.
And they all just eat, and on average they eat about the same amount as a middle class American in terms of meat, and their diets are really rich, and they, you know, just hang out, and they have a huge amount of leisure and downtime, and you know, kids have time to play and whatever and all that stuff. And there, it really is a lie and a real mischaracterization of the system that we're living in to say that we've made life a lot better for us and a lot easier, and that like our progress has served to give us surpluses that other people didn't have and that we didn't have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have this really weird sort of hierarchical way of thinking. I know different places, you know, we're talking from a very westernized perspective, and we're talking from like, you know, Canada specifically, right, from our own angle. But so we have this weird way of thinking about work and like what labor is and how much things are worth, and the sort of inherent value and need that people have to do work,
mm-hmm,
right? That causes us to keep creating stuff. We just, our system's not super great.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very controversial.
There's certain axes where people have pushed the limits to improve, and certain axes where we've completely neglected what it would mean to have a better lifestyle.
Yeah. And, you know, progress is great in a lot of ways. Recently, I've been playing Elden Ring, and I've been playing Elden Ring pretty much as I can, given how busy I am.
Right.
'Cause it is, you know, conservatively speaking, an incredible video game. I love it a lot. I think it's awesome. And I'm playing it on a brand new, you know, not brand new exactly, but like new, really powerful laptop. And it's this really sort of graphically intense game, and that's awesome. That, you know, that's progress. That's something I wouldn't have been able to have in a different circumstance. But there's a lot of stuff that we point to in terms of progress in technology where, you know, on the balance, is it really better for us, or is it more just that we're used to it? Because, I mean, you know, in the world that we live in right now, phones are almost necessities, right? Internet is almost a necessity to sort of live and work where we are right now. Right?
Yeah.
And I find it very hard to say that I'm better off having a phone than not having a phone. I am in the world that I live in, but if nobody else had a phone, if we're all just sort of wandering around and just hanging out, if nobody had a phone, I honestly can't say that I would be better off with one than without one. I think it's just sort of, there are things that are adaptive, and that's...
I think you would miss Wordle.
I would miss... Yeah, again, it's a great... You know, there's stuff that's adaptive for the world that you're in.
Yeah, no,
right?
no, I totally get it. Yeah.
But so I think a lot of, and that's one of the things about, you know, mass farming, is that in terms of old farming practices, there were old farming methods that were about as, and actually significantly more energy efficient than what we're using right now.
More energy efficient and more profitable. There's certain things that have been sold.
Yeah.
Now that we got into agriculture, I've been doing a little bit of reading about that. How some of the practices have been encouraged by the companies that are selling fertilizer and chemicals to totally change how people do it and make agriculture less efficient and less profitable, because a lot of the money gets put into these chemicals that takes a huge amount of work to get right.
Yeah, and so the new farming techniques largely are not necessarily improvements in all domains. They're improvements in one key domain, which is yield per unit of physical space. Because when you have cities, you need to get a lot of food to them. And your options for that are either transportation networks or growing a lot of food in a really small space. And so modern farming is worse on pretty much every metric except for density. Yeah. And so, you know, that's something that I learned that was really interesting, because if you look at, so the easiest way to think about it is talking about the calorie ratio, which is how many calories of energy do you put into making the food versus how many calories do you get out of it from eating the food once you've made it. And it turns out that the, you know, older farming techniques, they used a lot more land, but they were a lot better on the land. It didn't sort of degrade it in quality over time. And their calorie ratio was positive. They spent less energy making the food than they did eating it. Right. And so you could farm sustainably. And if you have that for whatever, you know, however much land needs to sustain, like 100 people. Let's say it's like 10 acres. I'm making up a number. I have no clue. You know, you have that 10 acres of land. You have 100 people you need to feed. And you can do that forever, right?
Right.
If you're not degrading the quality of the land and you are getting more energy out than you put in, that's a feedback loop. That's, you know, over a long enough time span, infinite energy out of that sort of plot of land required for those people. And now, what we've done is we've reduced to some extent the human caloric expenditure, right? Humans, a person, you can make a lot of food with one person,
right?
But when you take into account transportation and the machinery and everything like that,
and the inputs, right? Because the way you're farming isn't as efficient, so you actually you require a lot of furniture. I was going to say furniture.
Fertilizer.
It's not furniture you need. It's fertilizer.
It's like fractional. So you're spending like 20 calories to make like a single calorie of food.
Right.
And that is why we are, you know, running out of oil and why all of that other stuff, because, you know, it comes from somewhere. That energy doesn't just come from the universe. And some of it does, literally from the sun.
Yeah.
But there's a huge amount of non-renewable energy that goes into bringing that calorie of food out to you. Yeah. And that's no longer a sustainable system, you know, with our transportation networks. And a lot of it is burned in just transporting the food.
Right.
That's why you run out of oil, because if we want to keep eating the foods that we are eating right now, it costs more energy to get the food to us, for the food to go from nothing to a thing that's in our hand that we can eat. It costs more energy to make that thing than we get back out of it.
Right.
And, you know, as long as you have that system, we are going to keep burning resources unless we switch to exclusively renewable sources of energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. I think we've gone over time.
We've gone way over time.
Good thing I've got some video footage to fill this up.
So anyways, that comment was kind of sneaky and not so good.
That's the upshot. That's what we spent the last 40-something minutes talking about.
Yeah, not a very good comment. And
some food for thought.
Yeah, literally. And I hope people understand. I mean, we don't want anybody to now go to that comment and go, you suck and you're a dick and here's why. Because we're not like that mad. I think I know we're over time, but I'm going to talk for a second here. I have a friend. So if you, I know, are a little bit like me and have looked into crypto and NFTs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a friend, and I like the way that I talk about it with my friend, is we say it, and we're half joking, but we're half not joking, is that we're haters. Because we read these things, and it makes us mad. It makes us really angry. But there's this sort of cathartic anger to it, and you want to look into it more. You go, here's something I don't understand. I don't understand why people do that. And then you read into it, and you go, that's a terrible reason for doing that. Why are they doing that? And you go, oh, I know everything about this, so I know exactly how terrible a reason is, and it makes you a little bit mad. But it's in what's like an almost satisfying way. Yeah. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
It's like when you watch a show and there's a villain that you can actually root against.
Yeah, you love to hate it.
So
like, you know, crypto bros. So I think this was a little bit of that, where we're there's something inside of us, and it's not, I don't want to say it like it's some like darkness or some evil, but we can be a little bit of haters sometimes, and there's something a little bit
when you get
compelling about it.
When you get to articulate something that maybe is bouncing around your head a little bit, that you don't really have the opportunity to talk about much, there's something cathartic about it. I agree. Totally agree.
Maybe you see us as being a little pretentious or whatever, but it's a righteous anger. It burns
anger.
It burns clean. You know, so we're not
clean.
We're not like super upset or anything. I would say that this was a pretty enjoyable sort of 2-minute hate.
Oh, totally. 2 minute.
We're not like super bashful on the person. I mean, we're picking it apart because we can, but you know, hopefully people realize.
And this is the kind of comment the kind of content that will grow our channel. Because it's not injustice that's going to grow it. Yeah. Injustice has been here for ages. A lot of the information is there. If we're going to contribute anything to justice at this point, I believe it's the quality of the composition of our multiplayer teams, which is totally different than what other people are doing. Or if it's not, it's because we started it, because we've been around this long. Yeah. I will tell you, the Flashpoint team, I think we were one of the first to formulate it exactly this way, and as successfully as we did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this was our hater episode, and it's not because you were responding to a hate comment. I think the comment was just a little rude. We were the haters in this.
That's true. So this is the episode for the haters?
This is the episode from the haters.
By the haters, for the haters. Okay.
I don't even know. Yeah, so anyways, I hope... You know what? I had a good time with this one.
I did too. Thank you. You know what? This is the other reason actually we do this, because I feel like even when you're busier and I'm busy, that this is an excuse every week, a couple times, that we sit down, we have a chat.
Yeah.
We record this chat for the edification and the enjoyment of everybody else listening. But a lot of times we start off from the point of doing it for ourselves.
Some people say that we're in it for the wrong reasons. This is certainly not content for Adam Al. I'll tell you that for free. But it is for us. And I don't know. I mean, I know he's not going to watch this. I don't know whether I hope he does watch this or I hope he doesn't watch it. I don't know which one's better. And when I say better, I do purely mean funnier. I mean more personally entertaining. But anyways... Yes. That's I think the end of this week. And so I'd like to give a shout out to Eliza Snort Caton. She's been purchasing all the Peppa Pig merch and branded snacks available to her local available at her local Korean grocery store. I stumbled over my words. I mess it up at like the 5-yard line here.
I don't think she got her money's worth out of that.
Well, she's not been giving me anything for a while. This was supposed to be for the context, for the lore, for anybody who's interested, which I'm sure right now is at most one person, and that's a generous estimate. But she heard about my YouTube channel early in both of our university careers when we were sort of first just starting to hang out and become friends, and she's like, "Oh, I'll if you tell me about your channel, I'll sponsor you on Patreon." And I said, "Don't sponsor me on Patreon because Patreon takes a cut. Just like, I don't know, give me a slice of pizza every once in a while. It's like real life patronage. It's just doing things for a friend." And she goes, "Okay, but do I still get like the Patreon perks?" And I go, "Yeah, okay, all right. I'll read out some I'll read out your name at the end of the episode, like other patrons." And then I did like nicknames just because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And then we brainstormed some initially, and then I've been doing that for a very long time just because of that.
And when you say we, that's you and Eliza, not you and me.
Not me and you. No.
Right,
sometimes it's just me. Sometimes Eliza writes one.
Sometimes the royal we.
Sometimes we come up with it together.
Right.
And in the early days, it was real smooth sailing. I was rolling in it. Sometimes she would bring back like a pastry or something when she went downtown. Sometimes I would be getting food. She made a soap. Eliza's a soap maker. We talked about that really early in one of the early references. So she made me, she had an extra thing of soap from a batch she made. It was like a factory reject. And when I say soap maker, I don't mean part-time. I mean, or it was literally part-time, but she was a professional soap maker. She was
like
doing
not
it for a
even
job.
Artisanal kind of selling on Etsy, but like on scale.
Yeah, she
like
was
a really large scale industrial kind of soap maker.
Yeah, it was for like a mom and pop sort of store. It was for like one of those like hipstery, like richer, like upper middle class, like white woman, like farmers market
like
soap
candles
type situation. But the upshoot of that was that when there was a batch that was sort of not up to standards, like visually, or if there was like a little grainy or whatever,
not up to middle class white woman's standards.
Yeah, sometimes she would get to take some soap home. So I got like a free soap that she had homemade, but also it was the perfect balance because it was made by her, but it was also using sort of that full industrial process. So it wasn't like some like melt and pour, like where you just essentially buy soap and then put like a little bit of lavender oil in it, and then it's lavender oil and it's the same soap that you just bought in a kit. She like made it by herself, with her own, blood, sweat, and tears, although hopefully none of those were actually in the soap itself. So there's a bunch of little stuff. And then, with COVID...
I was just going to say...
The tradition has continued, but the value has dried up.
Or the frequency has dried up, because there's much fewer opportunities.
To
actually interact in person.
She's still a very generous soul, but just, I'm not seeing dividends on that.
What you're saying is that you're a lot dirtier now because you don't have enough soap to clean yourself with.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that now, what it used to be was her sort of patronizing me, in both senses of the word. No, it was her looking down on me and giving me that, charity. She's like, "Here's a Danish for your."
Oh, you look hungry.
Yeah.
Now you look dirty.
And now
it's like, all right, so it's like giving somebody a gym membership.
That's awful.
Here's a hunk of soap, you smelly
prick.
Yeah,
and now me reading these out is an act of charity for her. It's swapped in the other direction. I'm getting her name out there, to our one person who's still tuned in and who's interested. And sometimes she's like, "Did people ever comment about you like saying these things at the end?" And I go, "I don't think we've gotten a single comment about it since we started doing it," which I think is really something deeply funny, because
it's very revealing.
Well, she still doesn't.
As a callback to earlier.
She doesn't know this
podcast.
channel. So
that's true.
So she doesn't know the channel. Sometimes I will send her the clips of the end part, so she'll hear these, but it's divorced from the context of this YouTube channel. Right. And, you know, I have to say, I'm putting all this work in. I'm doing it for her. Unless I specifically take that time out and, like, cut these parts out and show her, she never sees them. Right. And not a single person who's watching this channel organically cares at all about them.
Right.
So this is another one of those things that we're really sort of just doing for us.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, so that's a shout out to Elise, and this shout out was brought to you by nothing. Because she hasn't given me anything to do this for her. It's just an act of charity on my part. But then, now we can move on to sort of the big money boys. The people who are actually, you know, giving us stuff.
You say that almost like if people didn't know better, they'd almost think you were being a little bit ironic or sarcastic or whatever.
No, but I'm not being ironic.
Totally
There's some people who support us, and we are... just it's hard to overstate how cool it is and how thankful we are for the people who support us on Patreon. Reading these out is a little bit of fun because every time we're reading these names out, we get to sort of take a moment and acknowledge that there are people who are like, yeah, I'm going to give those guys some money, which is, I question your sort of the quality of your financial decisions, but I appreciate the contents of your character and your heart
and your generosity
if you're giving us money.
That's right.
So I think you're a great person, and I think you should talk to your financial advisor and maybe, you know, tighten those
purse strings.
Tighten those purse strings, because if you're giving money to us, you clearly have some money to blow, I hope.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, a huge thank you to the folks who are supporting us on Patreon. Not to make fun of you at all, genuinely thank you. So that's a thank you to Bombo Ben, Consul Peasant, and Edwoon, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier. Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier. And then Shawn, Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo, who are supporting us on the credited level. And I should say Irvin Ruiz. I kind of mumbled that name. I want to give you
a proper acknowledgement.
Your due.
Yeah.
And then Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 241, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E at the gratitude level. Thank you so much for your support. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.